Welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Happy Saturday to everybody out there. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Hey, thanks everybody who came out last night to the station event at Tabacon and Plantation Walk. Man, we had a good time. Watched a thrilling Panthers winner. People were like, hey, Tobin, where's the recap? Dude, I had a day yesterday, okay? I had a day yesterday. I literally went from, my house to the studio, to the arena, back to the house. My son had jiu-jitsu class, went back down to the event. I was spent after editing, recording. I had meetings in the middle of the day, not complaining, just saying it was a hassle. So I got through the door last night at like 11:45. I'm like, I don't got it in me, dude. Not tonight. But shout out to the rat, Brad Marchand. Incredible game winner. Friggin' goosies galore. I saw all you bastards jumping off Bob's bandwagon. I did not appreciate that. In overtime, we reset, we refocus, and get ourselves back in this series. And the Cats got a huge one. It is not hyperbole to say they saved the season last night, and now they're right back in this puppy, ready for Sunday. But still reminiscing about the Pat Riley press conference as the Godfather spoke yesterday at 601 Biscayne Boulevard. It was a thrill. Always a great time hearing from the Godfather. What the hell is he going to say? And we talked a little bit yesterday about the Jimmy stuff. We talked a little bit yesterday about the very interesting nugget on Eric Spoelstra, and we talked about him telling Heat haters to basically go to hell. But I didn't want to get into today because I spoke to no less than a dozen people, maybe more, last night. And the one thing everybody wanted to talk about was, what did you think of the press conference? Who we getting? And it's a fair question, dude, because I came away with it. And I got to tell you, I don't think I have a clear picture of it. And I think there's a couple of things there. It's not that I don't think the Heat know what they're going to do, but I know damn sure they're not going to show their cards on what they're going to do. And I was speaking with somebody last week. He's like, yeah, but, I wanted to hear him, drop the whale line and all that stuff. And it's like, I get that. I understand. But right now, I think that they are in a place where the Miami Heat really did think they had their whale a couple of years ago, right? Like, nobody wants to hear about the swing and misses, but they really thought they had the Damian Lillard thing in the bag, and it was misplayed because they got too aggressive. And I just don't think they're going to get caught in that position again. When they pulled off their greatest heist, remember, that was all like D-Wade, Chris Bosh. Yes, they had internal knowledge of stuff, but even they, were left in the dark for a couple of hours there. And so I think the Miami Heat already know who is interested, because I don't think there's anybody in the playoffs left that is going to be rats off a ship, right? Like, if we go through it, New York, no one's leaving that team. Boston will get broken up. Maybe a Drew Holiday shake's available and the Heat can get in the game for that. But I don't think Drew's the type of guy that's like, get me out of here. Denver, you would have needed Denver to have a really ugly exit. They're up 2-1 right now. Obviously, nothing's going to happen with OKC. Minnesota, it would be the pipe dream. I've said that's something that's probably going to be 5 years down the road, 4 years down the road at the earliest, I would guess. I mean, Luka got traded. You can never count anything out. Warriors are set, unless Steph Curry's just like, get me away from Jimmy Butler. That would be funny. Have I gotten everybody? Oh, and then Cleveland. Cleveland's back in the series. I don't think anybody there is that would be like the earth-shattering one would be Spida. They would have had to get swept, and then I would have had to see Spida make a stink. And he just signed an extension, tough to go. So my point is, and then the Pacers, right? Like, no one's leaving the Pacers. None of the whales from the Pacers are leaving. So my point is, anybody that they're going to get is likely done playing basketball. Ergo, they probably have already tampered, touched base with the people. And I think the most obvious one, after hearing Riley yesterday, putting 2 and 2 together, the most obvious guy is Kevin Durant. That seems like the most obvious one that's out there. So we'll hear a little bit from this because Will Manso asked a great question yesterday. about Bam and Tyler and if they're alphas. And Pat Riley waxed poetic on it a little bit, and this is what he had to say on it.
Pat, one of the byproducts of Jimmy was everything. Good to see you. One of the byproducts of Jimmy leading was Tyler and Bam taking on kind of that A, 1A, 1B, 1A, 1A, whatever you want to call it, role. Do you sense from what we saw, the body of work post Jimmy, that they can be those kind of alphas, those leaders that could lead a team to a championship, or there needs to be another sort of alpha there with them?
Well, when we made the trade to get Andre Iguodala, Solomon Hill, and Jay Crowder, we didn't have to send out an alpha to get them. But those three guys were so responsible for that finals run in the bubble. And so there are some lateral trades you can make that could enhance the team. Who's to say who's an alpha and who's a beta? I don't know. Bam's an alpha guy. He's got an alpha personality. And Tyler has the alpha confidence of the most confidence of somebody I've seen, almost irrational confidence. And so that's a good question, Will. And so do we inject an alpha, a great player to help, maximize our performance in those double-digit leads that were lost in fourth quarter closures that can make a difference? It could be that simple. From that standpoint. I think one of the things you guys probably missed about Butler and myself is I'm an alpha too, and he's an alpha. And so I think I am anyhow, I'm not boasting that, but when you get two alphas in the same room, sometimes it doesn't work. But to answer your question, that is something that you think about. I think of an alpha as your best player, okay? And your leader, and he's the one that's going to hold everybody accountable in all of those things above just being a great player. And so, that comes with experience and that comes with time with some players. Sometimes an opportunity like that just happened this year, we don't know. Maybe this is the window that, our best players, and even some of the guys that we brought in on the trade, now they see I got some freedom. I don't have to play with Steph and Draymond. I'm not saying that in a negative way. Sometimes you get slotted into a place for 6 or 7 years before you can get free, and then it's the same thing with Jimmy. He's out in Golden State with two major alphas, and they all coincide with one another. So I don't want this to go out there that. What happened with Jimmy, as ugly as it was, that I didn't appreciate him, that I didn't love this guy. It just, those things happen. It wasn't fun. And so when we talk about alphas, I'm talking about players. I'm talking about stars. I'm talking about talent. And if that talent can help and he's humble, then fine. It doesn't make any difference to me. Translates into winning, that's all that counts,
All right, so there you go. A very interesting 3 minutes from Pat Riley, which, by the way, he talked about his cognitive state. I thought Riley rocked all of that stuff rattling off yesterday. And other than like the silly Liberty commercial moment, which was just kind of old man adorable. Like that wasn't like old man like oof. That was old man adorable. There's a difference. I thought all that stuff was interesting. And I think from his standpoint, okay, first off, let's break down the Solomon Hill, Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala trade with Memphis, which they basically flipped Justice Winslow, Deion Waiters, James Johnson stuff. And yes, they made a great role trade. I think from that standpoint, that was an incredible team. I don't necessarily know if even that team they thought was going to be a finals run. Incredible year where Bam and Jimmy and Derrick Jones Jr. won the slam dunk contest, and everybody had a great all-star break. And I remember that I was speaking with Pat that all-star break, right after that all-star break, because we were talking about Dwayne getting his number retired. And that was one of those classic Pat Rileys. I asked him a question, but he had something else he wanted out there, and he really just wanted out of the ether that nobody was giving us a chance. And so I think he is really proud of that trade. I think that one is one of those where they're like, yep, that did solidify. And they were important players. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Jay Crowder was great for the Heat in that finals run. So was Andre Iguodala. I think from not only some of the games and performances that he had, from a shooting perspective, from a defense perspective, from a leadership perspective, I think Andre Iguodala was very, very important. And I know that some Heat fans probably are like a little bit iffy on Andre just because, you know, he's one of those guys that has been like Warriors and Heat and can speak to the both sides of how things are done now. A little bit of irony that now Jimmy is on the Warriors with that. But look, man, that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is the main thing, which is, you know, hey, Pat, keep the main thing the main thing. Will's question there, you know what that is. And that is, are Tyler and Bam those guys? Not from a personality perspective, because I would never say Bam is I would never say Bam isn't an alpha personality from the side of where he's come from, what he's gone, but like, can you throw the ball to him? Can he take over a game like that offensively? We've seen games. Listen, Bam has more buzzer beaters than anybody but Dwayne Wade, I think, in his Heat career. So you can give Bam the ball late, last shot, and he can come through for you. I think you've seen his numbers in the clutch are pretty performance, but nobody's ever when are the games that they will run the offense through Bam and be like, hey, Bam, go get us 40 tonight, or try to. It just does. It hasn't been the case. Could it? I mean, he's almost, you know, he's going to be 28 this summer, I think. So any other leaps would be for him to turn into that will be surprising. And look, for him being the best defensive player in the league, being a 2010 guy, those things are valuable. They don't drop out of the sky. Like you saw last night with the Cavaliers. Like, Evan Mobley is very important to their success, and you're going to need that. So just because somebody's not an alpha doesn't mean they're not a piece to winning. And I know people will throw the max contract in there, but he's a two-way player. Like, you don't ever have to take Bam Adebayo off the floor, and he will never be taken off the floor in a playoff game. Flat out, simple, that's that. Tyler's the different question because Tyler's a one-way player. Now, he needs to take that one way to an elite place, and he says that Tyler's got irrational confidence. I think young Tyler had irrational confidence. I think that he has incredible work ethic. I almost feel like Tyler's confidence has gotten more rational. As now, he did have that terrible pull-up three against the Bulls when they were down 5. That was, I don't know if that was irrational confidence or just being irrational. But I think almost that sometimes his irrationality with some of the shots that he needs to, I think he needs to get more irrational in some of the shots that he could take. I think that could be even upped a tick even more from his perspective, because they're going to dare him to. They're going to throw a lot of things his way. And, you know, it'd be a bigger picture thing about, you know, his max and all that. I don't want to get bogged down in the weeds on that because I'll divert off to another thing. But then he puts the point of, can a star be humble? Yes, a little bit of a pot shot at Jimmy, and then he goes into the whole thing about, you know, I don't want anybody to feel like I didn't love Jimmy. I didn't appreciate Jimmy. You know, there was at one point where Pat Riley said Jimmy Butler reminds him of himself. So I do think he had a lot of love for Jimmy Butler. I think that's why there's a little bit of hurt. People can say, boo-hoo, you should have paid him. But I can understand the compartmentalization of all that and why he feels that way. But you talk about humble stars. I think the one that everybody goes to is KD, who I don't think is, when you say humble, like I don't think he's a boisterous, high maintenance guy. Though we know of KD, he can get a little bit in his feelings, I guess, on social media, or will blast people on social media. Pretty low maintenance for, I think, what they were compared to with what Jimmy was. And all of the things that came with Jimmy Butler, and especially as the winning picked up with Jimmy Butler, you know, because we already knew that Jimmy had some of that coming into the Heat. Then it was some great times, and then, you know, some old stuff kicked up. But yeah, I think the obvious one everybody goes to there is KD. I certainly don't think that's John Morant. When he says humble alpha, that is not John Morant. I don't necessarily know if I got a lot of hints on the Zion thing yesterday. KD seemed like the obvious one they were eyeing. Another guy who's kind of known for being a humble star, though, is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Danny Green was making this point on the jump yesterday. He goes, the only guy I think of when he says that is Giannis. Look, I don't know if the Giannis thing is pie in the sky or not. It probably is. It probably is a pipe dream. But again, that is something I think the Heat are going to have intel on. And I don't think they're going to go on some wild goose chase. That's the one thing I came out of this. I'm like, he's playing his cards close to the vest. They're not going to go on a wild goose chase because they're not going to have all these guys in rumors again just to get burned like they did 2 years ago. That's not going to happen. They're not going to let that happen. They're going to handle this thing, I think, in the shadows. They're going to handle this thing in the weeds. I think, look, some things still get out. But I still think that this is a Heat team that is going to really, really play its cards close to the vest if they have a shot at these things. I think that if they do, then maybe that's what Pat was talking about with the reset to gather themselves to get ready for 2026, and maybe that's what this year will prove. Maybe something becomes available mid-season, a la the De'Aaron Fox thing, and obviously the Luka thing, but that thing is, you can't count on that. That was too crazy. But from my standpoint, yes, those were the things that stood out in my mind when I heard humble superstar or humble alpha, because this is where they're at right now. But he also made this whole thing like, we're not going to run it back. He made the whole ribbit joke, and he's like, RIB, ribbit, RIB, run it back. We're not going to do that. There's going to be changes, which they need very badly.